Hey guys, it's Christy with Christy's Custom Creations, and I was asked to make a tumbler for a pickleball charity tournament coming up to support breast cancer awareness, and I decided let's make a pickle. So I want to show everybody how I made this tumbler here. So I'm starting off with a 30-ounce skinny hog tumbler, and I'm taking it out of the box and I'm going to get it prepped and ready to go, and I want to go through the prepping process with everybody on camera. So usually I do this beforehand, but I just wanted to go over it and show everyone. So I've got my sandpaper here. I love this sandpaper. It's a 220 grit sandpaper, and I realize this tumbler has a little dot sticker thing on the bottom, so I just take my little flat blade and I pull it up, and it's no big deal. So anyways, my sandpaper is 220 grit sandpaper. I get it on Amazon and it has a sticky back to it. I love it because it sticks to my fingers and I'm able to work very easily with it. It is the best sandpaper, and it is the only sandpaper that I use. So I'm just going to work the cup over real good, and you don't have to get crazy with it. You just want to scratch up the surface of the cup. Usually I take my cup and I go and I wash it with Dawn dish soap, but I just took some acetone and wiped it down really good since we were on video. But like I said, usually I go wash it with Dawn dish soap and then I come back and wipe it down with acetone, but for video purposes, this is what we're doing. Okay, so this hot glue gun here, I got on Amazon, and this was the first time I've used this hot glue gun, and I've been dying to use it for a while, and I will put a link down in the description box below for it. And it comes with all this stuff. It comes with glue sticks, and y'all, these glue sticks, some of them are glittery glue sticks. Who doesn't love glitter? And it's got a little stand for it, and so it's pretty neat. The stand has a little silicone piece on it, so any of the hot glue that drops down, it just goes down onto the silicone piece, and it's just like a little holder for it. So this was my very first time using this hot glue gun, and it's got little sticky things that stuck to my table, little suction pads or suction cups, and it works really well. I was very, very impressed with it. So I wanted to try it out with y'all for the first time, and like I said, I'll have a link for it. I got it on Amazon. I'll have it linked down in the description box below. And it is a really high heat glue gun, and it heated up really quickly. I was very impressed. Okay, so I'm gonna load the hot glue gun with a glue stick here, and I wasn't 100% sure how I wanted to get started on this tumbler. So I've got my little tumbler cradle. I use this in pretty much all my videos. I got it on Etsy. Hootyful Creations makes it. So like I said, I wasn't 100% sure how I wanted to start this off. Don't be like me and mash your finger down into it, because I just burned the fire out of my thumb at that point. Because I didn't want the dots to sit up too tall, and I just didn't know how to go about it. So I started off, you get to see my whole mess up process to begin with, and I started off doing this, and then I decided that looks like crap, and I did not want to do that. So you get to see me kind of work through my struggles a little bit. I decided, instead of burning my finger, let's try a popsicle stick. Somebody in my Facebook group recommended doing a popsicle stick, because I was live in my Facebook group while I was also recording this video. And excuse my big head that's in the way, but yeah, don't be like me. So I worked through my issues here, and I ended up pulling all these dots off after the fact and then just putting on new dots. And you'll see here in just a bit how I ended up doing it that worked for me, and it ended up working out great, and the dots were perfect. So what I'm doing here is I'm just randomly placing dots all over the tumbler, dots with the hot glue gun, randomly on the tumbler. And as I turned the tumbler, I noticed that the dots started to kind of want to run and drip down the side of the tumbler. And so, as you can see, I'm pulling dots off here because I wasn't happy with how it looked. So you got to work through the process with me. I didn't want to take this part of the process, this part of the video out, because I wanted y'all to see me work through through the issues and try to figure out the best way to do this so that y'all could learn from it as well. Okay, so it was at this point when my brain clicked and started working, and I decided, hey, let me just make a line of dots all the way down the tumbler and work my way down the tumbler just straight down. And as you can see here, I just go straight down the tumbler with dots, spacing them about an inch or so apart, and I would let that dry enough so that it wouldn't run. So you can see me kind of just hanging out and waiting a second. And then once that was dry, I would rotate the cup just a little bit, and then I would do another line of dots. And I would actually do the dots, so if you have 2 dots, you do one kind of like in the middle. So I staggered the dots going all the way down the cup, and it actually ended up being perfect this way. My hot glue wasn't trying to run. I didn't have just crazy random dots everywhere, and it worked out perfectly. So as you can see over here on the side, it's very random, and then as I started using my brain and decided to go like this, it actually really started looking good. So the dots on the side, I do end up pulling those off later on, because as I worked my way around the cup, they looked horrible compared to how this section of the cup did, where I just went straight down the cup. So like I said, bear with me. I had to work through the issues that my brain was having with trying to figure out how to do these dots, but it ended up working great. So I'll let you just watch. If you want to fast forward to the next part, be my guest, you can fast forward to the next part, but I dot it all the way around the tumbler. So I'm just going to work my way all the way around it. And you'll notice that after I put a dot down, I'm kind of swirling the hot glue gun a little bit. And so that helps, it was helping to kind of keep the stringiness from the hot glue gun under control, which I didn't have a whole lot of stringiness with this hot glue gun, which was awesome because I have a low heat hot glue gun that it was a super cheap one that I got from Hobby Lobby and forever ago. And that is the stringiest hot glue gun I've ever used. But this hot glue gun, it's hot enough to where I didn't have much stringing, but any little strings that I did have, I just took my finger and just rubbed my finger over the cup, and they came up super easily. But like I said, I got this one here on Amazon, and I'll have it linked in the description box below, and I believe it was like right around $20. It was a pretty good price, I felt like, for the glue gun. While y'all are watching me try to rub some of the little hot glue strings off here and work my way around this cut with the dots, I do want to mention, if you haven't checked out my website yet, kccglitter.com, have launched a glitter line, and we have got some amazing colors. We launch new colors every single week, so be sure to check it out. It's kccglitter.com, and I will have that down in the description box as well. All right, and there we have it. My dots are in place. I just once the hot glue was dry, I ran my fingers over it and just pulled up any little strings, and there's the hot glue gun. I was super impressed with that little carrier. That way you don't have to set it down on a paper plate or anything like that. You just plop it right down in there. So now that all my hot glue dots are dry, I'm going to go in with a coat of epoxy. And I'm going in with 20 milliliters of Tumblerpoxy epoxy. I also sell Tumblerpoxy kits on my website at kccglitter.com. I sell the 16-ounce starter kits, so if you haven't tried Tumblerpoxy before and you want to give it a shot, but you don't want to buy like a whole gallon or a 2-gallon kit, check it out. Check out my website because I've got the smaller kits. They're perfect for giving it a try, trying it out. So I'm just gonna put this 20 milliliters of epoxy on this tumbler. It is a 30-ounce tumbler. Usually I would use 30 milliliters of epoxy because it is a 30-ounce tumbler, but all I wanted it to do was just kind of smooth over those hot glue dots a little bit. I didn't want to drown the hot glue dots. I just wanted it to make it nice and smooth. So when you apply the epoxy here, make sure that you get all over those dots and around the edges of them and everything, because it is easy to miss a spot. So I've got my my blowtorch here, also got it on Amazon, and I'm just going to back and forth really quick, super fast passes. Yes, this video is sped up just a little bit, so I don't really move this fast, but just popping any little micro bubbles and making sure that the epoxy flows nice and smooth over the cup as it turns. So once I do that, I'm going to let my cup spin for about 5 or 6 hours, and then at that point I can shut the turner off, and that's it. And let it completely dry though. I mean, it probably takes about 10 hours to completely dry. So I went in with spray paint. Once my epoxy was dry, I went in with spray paint, and I painted with flat white Rust-Oleum spray paint all over this tumbler, all over the epoxy. And then now I've got Pinata alcohol ink, and I believe it was called Rainforest Green, and I am just applying this with my chip brush. Now my chip brush, I gave it a haircut. So the chip brushes, sometimes they're a little scraggly on the ends, so I just took my scissors and cut the end off so that it was kind of squared off nicely. So I'm just like you would wood grain a tumbler, that's how I'm applying this alcohol ink. And I always wear a glove on my hand that is holding the PVC turner attachment, because otherwise my hand would be covered in alcohol ink by the end of this. So if you don't want to be covered in alcohol ink, I highly recommend wearing a glove. And this alcohol ink, when you flick it back and forth, it tends to fly backwards. So I would also recommend wearing an apron so that you don't end up ruining your clothes, because Lord knows we ruin enough clothes with epoxy making these tumblers. So I do want to mention the green in this video for some reason looks super dark. It's really not that dark in person. It looks a lot more dark. It looks a lot darker on the video, but it's really not. And I'll show you an up close of it towards the end of the video, and you'll see that it's really not quite so dark green. But I wouldn't have minded using a little bit of a lighter color. I just didn't have a lighter color green. This is the only green alcohol ink that I had. So I'm just going to continue to work my way all the way around the cup, and I just apply the alcohol ink and brush it. So whenever you put alcohol ink over alcohol ink, it's going to actually lighten up that spot a little bit. So once I got the cup fully covered, I went back over numerous sections with alcohol ink, and I was able to give the tumbler some depth in the color. See, you can see here it's not quite as dark as it looks whenever I brought it up to the camera, but now I'm just going in and I'm creating a little bit of depth, because like I said, when you put alcohol ink over alcohol ink, it lightens it up. It kind of pulls the color away. So it gave it some really neat colors. And I always save the bottom of my cups for last, because I really like to focus a lot on the sides of the cup, the part that everybody sees, and then I go in at the end of it and then I work on the bottom. So, and I don't know if you'll notice those two cups off to the side spinning. Those are 3 glitters from my glitter line, KCC Glitter. So I've got the purple one is called Esmeralda. It's a color shifting glitter, and I've got it on a black base, and that cup under epoxy is amazing. I mean, it is probably one of my favorite glitters that I carry, but I literally walk by and look at this cup all the time just because it's so pretty. And then the green is called Bankroll, and the white on the that's above the green there, it's called Unicorn Dreams, and that white is so stunning. It's got kind of like a pinkish shift to it. So if y'all haven't checked out my website, be sure to check it out. I've got some really pretty colors on there. So now I am just working on the bottom, and when I do the bottom, I'm really careful not to let the alcohol ink spill over the edge of the tumbler, because I've worked really hard on the sides of the tumbler already, and I don't want the alcohol ink to run down it and mess up what I've already been doing. So if you notice, I don't use a whole lot on the bottom. I just use just a little bit at a time, so that I'm able to really be careful and not spill my alcohol ink over the edge of the tumbler and mess up the pretty sides that I made. All right, so once you get your pickle looking how you like it to look, let it dry. So I like what I got here. I'm done with it. I'm going to set it off. Well, I'm not really done with it. Had to make a couple little more lines in there. Okay, I'm really done with it. So I'm gonna set it off to the side and let it dry. I let the alcohol ink dry for probably at least 5 or 6 hours. I don't like to seal my alcohol ink because I've found that it discolors it. So I like to let it sit and completely dry before I epoxy. So I am now going in with, I think for this coat, I only used 20 milliliters again of Tumblerpoxy epoxy. One thing about Tumblerpoxy epoxy is it spreads really easily. So it's not a super thick epoxy. So like I said, it spreads easily, so you don't have to use as much epoxy to get really good coverage. All right, so now that I've got epoxy all over the tumbler, I start at the bottom of the tumbler and I work my way up the tumbler with one finger, smoothing it out as it spins, and then I go in with my heat or my blowtorch and I quickly torch it as the cup spins, popping any micro bubbles and making sure that that epoxy lays nice and smooth. All right, so after about 8 to 10 hours, my epoxy is completely dry, and look at the depth and everything from that alcohol ink. It looks so cool. And then I threw a little vinyl decal on the bottom that says pickleball, because like I said earlier, this is for a pickleball tournament in support of breast cancer awareness that is going on, that I am donating this cup. And then the other cup that you had seen earlier in the video off to the side with the green bottom and white top, both of those cups are going towards that event. So I am going in with one last coat of epoxy just to make sure everything's good and sealed in, and to also seal in that vinyl decal on the bottom of the tumbler. And I'm using here 25 milliliters of epoxy. Make sure you get good coverage around all the little lumps and bumps that are on there. And once you get good coverage, I start at the bottom of the cup with one finger, just like I always do, work my way up the cup as it spins, making sure that everything is nice and smooth. And then once I make my way all the way around, I'll do a couple quick swipes on the bottom just to make sure everything is nice and smooth there. And then it is time to, of course, go back in with my blowtorch and just give the cup a really good torch. And I let the cup dry completely for probably 10 hours before I handled it. This was the last coat, so of course I don't want to mess it up. So all the products that you see me use in the video, I will have linked down in the description box below. And also be sure to check out kccglitter.com to see all of our awesome, beautiful colors that we have. And I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial here and watching me work through my issues. If you did enjoy this tutorial, please be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. And as always, I hope y'all have a great day. Y'all take care. Bye.